Hello, my name is Jim. This is my podcast, The Bloody Vegans. You're very welcome to it. Each week I'll be travelling ever deeper into the world of veganism, discovering along the way a multitude of viewpoints from the political and ethical to the practical. I'll be doing this through a series of conversations, each aiming to illuminate my understanding and hopefully yours of all things plant-centric. And this week's no different. We're going to be speaking with Jade Crawford, the head chef of Forest Green Rovers, the world's first and only vegan football club. They operate in League Two of the British football pyramid and have been vegan for a few years now, starting with a kind of transition into vegetarianism, I think in about 2010, 2011. And Jade has been, in the last couple of years, kind of instrumental in the incredible food that they offer at Forest Green, both to the fans and to the players, which is 100% vegan. It's an incredibly unique position, an incredibly unique role. So without further ado, this is me and Jade Crawford. So, Jade, what got you started into the world of veganism?
So the journey started quite a while ago. I was about 18 and I went vegetarian. It was about a year and a half I was veggie, and then I was a waitress at the time and like part-time chefing at a place. So I was kind of like, I didn't really know anything about nutrition or anything like that. I was kind of just eating cheese sandwiches all the time, or just anything I could get my hands on, just toast or, because... So then I went back to eating just anything, like just stop being veggie. And then I went travelling in Australia. This was when I was 24, so I was there for 2 years. So I went travelling in Australia, worked on loads of farms. Because I had loads of time to myself, because I was living in rural areas. I was watching loads of documentaries and I was studying nutrition, just like home studying, nothing legit or anything. And then I realised, I was realising that a plant-based diet is like kind of, if you do it properly, it's the best diet to do. So then I completely cut down on eating meat, and then it started off going eating like just organic meats, like from the farms around, like nearby, kind of knowing where your meat comes from. And then I obviously watched loads of documentaries like Cowspiracy, Knives Over Forks, Land of Hope and Glory, and and then I was like, no, I'm like done with eating it. And to be honest, it kind of like, you get to a point where you're like, this is actually making me feel sick, just like eating it, like kind of picking it apart, like, oh, I don't want it, I don't need this, and obviously studying the nutrition side of things, realising that you can get your proteins and carbohydrates and everything from other things, so yeah.
Was it the connection, like, when you said like you were eating it and you kind of felt a bit like uneasy almost, was it the kind of connection with the animal welfare element that was causing that?
Yeah.
Or was it kind of, you knew what this was doing to your body?
Both really, because like I was so into the health side of things, and for me, I was struggling with my skin quite a lot. I don't know if it was the humidity or whether it was something that I was like adamant that it was something. And as soon as I cut out dairy, it completely like changed. It completely cleared up, and I was like, well, that's saying something, isn't it? So yeah, it was definitely the health side of things, but obviously the animals as well. Like being in Australia, like, there's just animals everywhere, and it was like, I love animals so much. Like I can't, like, why do people find it like so easy to disconnect the fact that look at that beautiful animal, I'm gonna go pay look at them at a farm, but then I'm gonna eat it on my dinner plate that same night. Like it just doesn't make any sense,
Yeah, totally. It makes me think of like, when Easter particularly is always a time that I find like the most there's the most amount of kind of like cognitive dissonance, if you like, that like, you see little kids kind of looking at pictures of rabbits and little lambs, and then you have like a leg of lamb for Sunday lunch.
I know, right? It's so strange. I just don't understand it. Like eating a little lambs, yeah.
It's a very, very strange kind of like psychological thing that we have to kind of almost create in children, I think, from a young age. When you were working on the farms, I'm kind of intrigued by that. Like, so, you were kind of like, you were vegetarian at this point?
No, I can't say I was vegetarian. I was like part-time vegetarian kind of thing. I've never actually eaten fish. I've never been into fish before. So that was easier for me to be veggie/vegan because it was one less thing I had to cut out.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
When you started working at these farms, was there did you kind of see anything firsthand that made you think absolutely don't want to be part of this? Was that part of why you started studying, or what sort of farms were they?
Yeah, so I mean, I worked on loads of different farms. There was tomatoes, potatoes, lemons, basil. Basil was my favourite because it smelled so good.
Yeah.
But I did actually, for a bit, work in like a meat factory.
Did you?
That was, for me, that was like, and that's not like common knowledge. I haven't really told many people that because it's not something I'm proud of. Yeah. But at the time, like I wasn't vegan and I've always cared about animals, but when you're traveling, you need money, you're kind of going to do what you can, aren't you? And, but that, I wouldn't say I regret it because that's opened my eyes,
I'll bet.
Like, so for example, I was working in a room where we just cut steaks and stuff. So I'd have to cut the fat off steaks or whatever. And obviously that's where my knife skills come in handy. And do you know what? Seeing what goes into mince. Right. So like you cut like bits of gristle off of the steak. Say you've got like a T-bone, for example. Like you'd have like a tumour. So it was like a purple kind of like tumour or like a fat lump or something. You cut that off and you put it in like this bucket and that would all go into the mince. So people think, honestly, like if you don't buy expensive mince, and even if it's expensive, it's only probably 70% beef. If you buy like cheap mince, probably about 5% beef. The rest of it is just all the rubbish that's cut off, the stuff that they can't sell.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would turn anyone vegan.
Yeah, right.
In itself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's quite shocking.
Yeah, I know, it's awful. And just seeing stuff like that and just realising like what... No, people don't realise, and I was the same, people don't realise what they're eating, Yeah. So... to be there and to see that, I was like, right, well, I'm totally done with eating meat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, awful.
So why no fish? What when you were back in your omnivorous days, you mentioned that you'd never eaten fish. So why was that?
So even since I was a little girl, like I've just never been into it. My mum like used to, like my sister loves it. She's always, not anymore, she's vegan too, but she always used to love it. My mum, all my family were into it and they were like, it's so good for you, you need to eat it. But I was like, I hate the smell of it. I hate the look of it. Like and to be honest, I actually had like a little phobia of fish, like even going in the sea. Yeah, like I used to go swimming and be like really scared of the fish. I'm all right with it now, like I'm cool to swim in the sea. But like my like it wasn't like obviously forced upon me, eat what you want kind of thing, but I just never liked it. It's just like and you get like lifelong vegetarians and it was their choice just from a young age, and like whoa, that's really crazy how you just turned that down. That's like me with fish, that I've just never been into it.
It's never your thing.
No, not at all. Like I think I've tried tuna and I've tried prawns and just no. I haven't tried it. Actually, saying that though, when I was in the Philippines, I ate a fish that had just come out the sea, and this was before I was vegan or vegetarian. But I was like, well, I'm here. Like it was like 10 of my friends sat around, and we were like, if we get like 5 fish to share, I was like, I'll try it because look, that you can't get any fresher than straight out the sea, can you? And to be honest, it was all right because it wasn't like fishy. I think when it's fishy and like I think obviously when a fish gets older, then it starts to smell like fish. When a fish is fresh, that's how you know a fish is fresh because it's not fishy. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. So, I've heard that. Yeah. That's I think that's kind of not common knowledge either. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, I said it to someone the other day and they're like, what? Yeah. So I was like, if you get a really fishy fish, then it means it's like on its way out.
Yeah.
Don't eat it.
Yeah. Bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you've become vegan at this point. Had you kind of and you're still away traveling, or had you kind of made the decision by the time you'd got back? By
the time I got back, pretty much. Yeah. So I was kind of like I didn't say I was vegan. It wasn't like I'm vegan, but I was always cooking vegan food. Like that's kind of where my vegan cooking knowledge came in because I was I was just like I wouldn't cook non-vegan food, because I started cooking vegan food and I was like, whoa, like I can't believe you can do all this without animal products. That's so cool. And then just carried on from there, really. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you came back, was you mentioned your sister's vegan? Was that a similar time period, or were you kind of a bit of a trailblazer in the family?
Yeah, literally. So obviously I'd been veggie before, and then she was always a bit like, no, like I'm not too bothered about, it. And then suddenly, so I'd been back probably a month, and she was like, I think she watched a few documentaries as well, and she was like, we're just going to do it. And I was like, do you know what, I'm going to do it too. Oh no, I think maybe they've been vegan for like a month, like her and her family, because she's got 2 little girls and she raised them vegan too.
Yeah.
And she was like, so yeah, I think we're going to do like completely vegan. And and then my friend said, was reading this book. I'm not sure who it was by, but it was talking about mucus and how dairy products like really affect like how much mucus build up and blah, blah, telling me about that. And I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm doing it. Like I was pretty much vegan anyway. It was just, I wouldn't, like now and again, if there was something, I'd be like, yeah, go on then, kind of thing. Yeah. But I was like, no, that's it. Like I'm doing it completely. Like there's no excuses. And from them really. So yeah, now we've on this journey together, and no one else in our family's vegan. So it's nice to have that. And she actually works in the kitchen with me at Forest Green as well.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
A family business.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
So did your kind of friends and family react kind of positively to you and your sister going vegan, or was there any kind of resistance there?
Obviously people, like to take the piss out of things. So, but no, they've been totally supportive. Like we'll go over our aunties and they'll have like this whole vegan spread that our uncle would have cooked for us. And it's really sweet. Like last time we went round, they had our own little vegan cheese board.
Oh, nice.
So cute. And like, so everyone really caters for it now. Like, everyone always will at first, like it's been like over 2 years now, nearly 3 years that we've both been vegans. Obviously everyone's used to it. At first, people are always going to take the piss out of what they don't understand. That's just the way it is. Like there's people out there that don't understand veganism, so they're just going to, take the mick out of it because, to try and make themselves feel better or whatever. So yeah, but now they're like, they're so accommodating to it, and yeah, it's really nice. And we've turned pretty much like our mum and dad are both drinking oat milk now, which is a really big deal. So like trying to just like kind of get them onto it. I think our brother's like has like mainly a vegan diet. Like he doesn't call himself vegan, but he will, so it's just spreading the word and spreading it to others. So it's just nice. Like we're having a completely vegan Christmas this year, and I did last year with my dad and brother, and this year we've got my sister's in-laws coming down, and they're all happy to do a vegan Christmas. And isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that's awesome.
For people that love me as well.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Yeah, and particularly at Christmas, because it's
it's like a tradition.
It's a very non-vegan kind of event traditionally anyway. So it's great that you managed to convince a family to go vegan for at least for the day.
Exactly.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you were self-taught as a chef. So tell me a bit about that. Like, where did your love for food come from, and particularly cooking? Yeah.
So I was actually talking to my mum about this the other day, because she said that I always used to help her out in the kitchen, which I remember. I used to love cooking. So I'd be the one, my brother and sister weren't interested, and I always would be like, can I help? Like make the stuffing balls or whatever. And then I lived with my dad and my sister when my mum and dad split up, and I'd always do the cooking. I'd always cook for like us three. So I've always loved cooking, and I've done like veg chef roles like growing up, in restaurants. I worked in like this like health food kind of cafe thing in Australia, which was like I worked with this lady, and we did like I did some cooking, she did some cooking, I did front of house stuff, because I've got a lot of experience in front of house hospitality as well. So so I learned a lot from her as well with the health side of cooking. And then obviously being in Australia, having loads of times on my hands, I was just constantly cooking. It was like my boyfriend at the time. I was like, so what do you want for lunch? Like we're eating, what do you want for lunch? Like I was just constantly really loved cooking. So yeah, like vegan wise, I can like self-taught. I've worked with a lot of chefs in my time that have taught me a lot as well. but it's been very meat and dairy based, like animal product based food. So yeah, the veganism side of things is completely just self-taught, like watching programs, like looking at people's recipes, like adapting recipes, and kind of how I like to do it is, because I was a meat, like I enjoyed eating meat at the time. Like I'm not going to sit here and say it's disgusting because I used to love it, but it's a choice of my mind to not anymore. So I know how it is to be a meat eater. So I try and accommodate my dishes so that meat eaters will like it. So like, like not doing, especially at the club, like doing like say lasagna or like kind of hearty homely meals to try and like so the meat eaters will like it as well as the vegans, and not just feed them like, I don't know, like vegetables like they think they're going to get when they come to, some people think they're going to get that when they come to the ground,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely. Did you would think, talking about that, when you kind of like, joined Forest Green, we'll come on to kind of how you kind of got there. But I'm really intrigued as to like catering for a football audience, because there are so many stereotypes in the world of football in terms of like, particularly around kind of, I guess it's all wrapped up in kind of this alpha male like masculinity, kind of like meat is like, meat and alcohol are kind of quite associated with football. So kind of like coming into that club as a vegan chef, you mentioned kind of catering a little bit towards their kind of palates and so on.
yeah.
How did you go about doing that? Was it quite a creative experience, I suppose, coming up with that menu?
Yeah, for sure. I actually change the menus like every week as well. So it's constantly like adapting with like I'm growing with it in a way. So yeah, it can be challenging. I always try and like get feedback from people. And like I said, I know as meat eaters, so like I'll try and do like, you've got to obviously cater for their allergens as well. Like you've always got to have gluten-free options, stuff like that. So you've got to, it's a lot to think about. And there's like, across the hospitality floor, there's probably about 450 people you've got to feed in an hour and a half. And they get like, the suites get a choice of 3 buffets. The hospitality area, I'll do a different menu every week. So I'll try and do cater for people that are meat eaters, cater for vegans. So we'll always have like 2 like amazing salads, and then there'll be like hearty meals. But I kind of stick with themes as well. So on Saturday we had like a Christmas meal, because obviously it's like coming up to Christmas. I'll do like Mexican, Indian, Italian, and try and stick to different themes, but also have, so for example, if I was going to have like a Indian, I'd have a curry, but then you'd have like a dal, or probably Indian's not a very good example because you can't really like go to, can't really do over. So for example, on Saturday, so I did a pie, like it was corn, kale and mushroom pie with like a bechamel sauce. And that is good for meat eaters because the corn, it's like, but then I also did a stew which had sunflower mince in it, and sunflower mince is amazing because it's got 50 grams of protein per 100 grams. So it's like, I try and feed that to the players quite a lot as well. So yeah, I just like, I mean, yeah, it's always different feedback from people. Like you're never going to please everyone, and sometimes but I do. I haven't had any comments yet where I was like, oh, that was like, yeah, gross. So I just try and like do what I can really, and I kind of do what I like eating. But like when I'm at home, I wouldn't eat like meat substitutes personally because that's not why I'm vegan. Like sometimes I do, like I'll treat myself to a bit of oomph because that's my favorite. But yeah, I I don't know. I just prefer to eat like vegetables and like look at like the more whole foods kind of way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There's a few of my kind of like the people we've spoken to on the podcast who we've talked about meat substitutes, and there's definitely like a kind of a sense, I think, as you go through the vegan journey, that they're great as a transitioning tool, And then I've heard that from lots of people that they've kind of almost removed them from their diet later, or not necessarily remove them on, purposefully, but they'll kind of put them in their place as a food they'll eat on occasion. It's not the kind of the main.
Yeah, for sure.
And was that kind of always your experience? Did you kind of use them as a transitioning thing, or was it always kind of a very whole foods kind of plant-based diet for you?
No, for me, I actually didn't get into meat substitutes really until I started working at Forest Green. I was very like whole foods. Like to be honest, I was a lot healthier before than when I wasn't, when I discovering a lot of vegan junk food, and I don't get me wrong, I still try and be as healthy as I can, but it's nice as a treat. Because like for me, veganism is a huge journey, and everyone has their own different reasons for doing it. Like mine started off as health, and now it's for the environment and it's for animal welfare. Some people just do it for the animals, but they love meat, so they want their meat substitutes, and that's fair enough. Like everyone has their own way of doing it, and they're still not going to be as bad for you as what meat can be.
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
all especially if you eat the mince and the tumours.
Absolutely. Not that I'd ever go back to those, but I definitely wouldn't now. That's quite shocking after your experiences. So have you found any kind of, you've mentioned there getting feedback from fans. Has there been any sense that you've noticed any kind of pockets of the kind of home support, if you like, who've said that they've kind of, as a result, been inspired, perhaps even moved into veganism as a result of the things that they've eaten on a match day?
Yeah, definitely. There's actually one fan who gets interviewed quite a lot because he transitioned because of the club, which is amazing. I think quite a lot of people that I speak to, even if they're not going the full way vegan, they're like, I only eat meat once a week now. And like so many people I speak to are doing that now. Like they're trying their best to cut down, which is amazing. Like it's better than nothing, like lowering your carbon footprint as much as possible. So yeah, and like even some of the players, have like messaged me or got in touch with me saying like, can you help me like kind of try this like plant-based diet? A lot of people kind of struggle to know where to start. That's what I've found when people have like spoken to me about it. It's like, I want to do it, but I just wouldn't know what to eat. So, there's a lot of things that you can read these days. All you need to type into Google is like, how do I become vegan? That's like the easy way. Or you can get books, you can speak to other vegans, I think it's amazing how much it's growing, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it just seems exponential at the moment. Like it's kind of moving at an incredible pace.
Yeah.
But I definitely think it's kind of incumbent upon us, like within the kind of community almost, to support people kind of beyond the junk food bit. Because I do think there's a bit of, there could be a fallout from it. Like we've all probably read those stories of, I went vegan and then I got really sick, so now I'm not vegan. And then you find out that what they ate was chips and drunk Coke all day.
Exactly.
Both of which are perfectly vegan.
Yeah.
But, and yes, you've saved a lot of animals and, the environmental impact's probably good, but you're not going to be healthy doing that.
No.
It's not a sort of silver bullet, if you like.
No, of course.
So I think it is incumbent upon us to sort of, talk about how you get to the next bit almost.
Yeah.
So talking of that, like you mentioned there, kind of like, and I think you're spot on, like just Googling it nowadays, there's just so much out there, so much information. But like, I'd love to sort of like, because we're approaching Veganuary, so this hopefully will be a time for loads of people to kind of start thinking, maybe I'll get involved in this. Maybe I'll have a go. And hopefully some people who've been to Forest Green and certainly tasted like some of the amazing food that you and your team kind of create every week, they would have definitely felt that way, I'm sure.
Thanks.
So I'd love to come on to just some of the kind of the misnomers, if you like, the misconceptions, the things people think, where do I get that from?
Yeah.
So like protein. And now I particularly mention protein for like, you feed professional footballers who, probably more than many others would have a concern over protein. So,
Of course, yeah.
So what are the kind of great protein sources that you kind of like to cook with?
So obviously beans and legumes are a big one. So lentils, chickpeas, really high in protein. Hemp for me, like personally, I think hemp's an amazing source of protein. Soya, so tofu, like edamame beans. I mean, like quinoa. Like if you look deep enough, there's protein in a lot of things, a lot of plant-based things, like nuts, like really, really high in nuts. So for the players, like I'll do them for when they're on the pitch, and so obviously they run around for 90 minutes, so their glucose levels will drop. So they'll I'll make them flapjacks, and they'll eat like nutty flapjacks like throughout the game, to kind of keep their glucose levels up and to keep their energy going, like even oats have protein in, so, but they also have carbs in, so it's really good for that.
I suppose that's a different way to think of it, isn't it? For people who are kind of into the nutrition side. And, perhaps I certainly have heard this kind of story before, that people who are perhaps into their kind of health and fitness and were worried particularly about their macros and so on, and, their protein versus their carbs and the like, they would almost see their plate as isolated sources. Like, that's my protein, that's my carbs. And I suppose, I think I'm right if I've picked up what you're saying there, like thinking about protein and carbs as sometimes it might be the same source.
Yeah, exactly.
Is probably a more effective way to think about it. Is that, am I right in that?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. Like you can, I'm just trying to think so for like even beans, like they both have carbs and protein in, and yeah, there's like the same with quinoa, oats. I mean, nuts are more protein based, but they've also got your micronutrients in them too. I think the best thing to do when being vegan is like you said, like people eating just chips and they're like, oh no, I've got really ill, like I've got a B12 deficiency. It's like, yeah, fair enough, because you're not like looking after yourself. Like even if you're not vegan, you still need to make sure you're eating the right thing. It's just that like people live on meat and potatoes. Like they're not healthy. They're just getting through, I personally like have a B12 spray that I use, like by Tree of Life, just to make sure that I've got that, because once your B12 goes down, like it's hard to get it back up again. I think being vegan, that's the biggest struggle. But apart from that, like you literally can get protein from a lot of sources,
Yeah.
So just like what I try and do when I'm eating my own meals is make sure I've got carbohydrates and protein in it. And even if people do enjoy the meat substitutes, they've got a lot of protein in them as well. That's why the players, they like to have pies after they've eaten. It's something they enjoy. And it's full of carbs from the pastry, and it's full of protein from the corn. And sometimes I'll put beans in there as like a more natural protein as well. So
you mentioned there that the players kind of like, they're like a pie after a game, and your job's kind of trying to make it nutritious.
Yeah.
Like generally speaking, are they pretty positive about the food that they've had at Forest Green? So I'd imagine a lot of them, the world of professional football, players move around all the time, right? So you get new players in. What's that kind of experience like? Do they adjust quite quickly?
They seem to. Like, to be honest, I don't see the players as much because I don't train at the ground anymore. Hopefully with the new ground coming, I'm sure that will change. But the ones I've spoken to, like they seem really into it. They say like they enjoy what I cook them. Like there's no complaints, I don't think.
And I suppose where they're, with any professional, I guess, where their performance is impacted positively, then they'll very quickly kind of get on board with it, right? Yeah,
exactly. And I think, I don't know the specifics, but since the club's gone vegan, I think the Forest Green had like the lowest scar tissue injury in the league last year, which is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, wow, that is incredible.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Have you found, like, since, like, say Game Changers is obviously not that long out.
Yeah.
And I have definitely noticed people's interest being piqued and it kind of makes me a little bit sad because I'd prefer that their interest was piqued when Earthlings came out,
Right. Yeah.
or when Cowspiracy came out. And there was people obviously who were interested at that point, but definitely Game Changers seems to have captured the imagination of a world obsessed with kind of health and fitness and protein and so on and so forth.
Definitely.
Have you noticed, like being, affiliated with a sports club particularly, that have you noticed that kind of impact of things like Game Changers on people's kind of interest levels?
Yeah. A lot of people have actually mentioned to me that since watching Game Changers, they're going to go vegan, and which is, like you say, it's amazing. Like, regardless of people's reasons, like, it's amazing that people are doing it. And yeah, like, so I think like literally like probably about 10 people in the last 3 weeks have come in and like, have you seen Game Changers? Like, yeah, the strongest man in the world's vegan,
Yeah.
Where's your excuse? Like, everyone can do it if it's done properly. That's the thing. That's the bottom line, is you need to look after yourself. You need to do it properly. You need to eat whole food. You need to eat a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruit, and even like carbs. You need to, it's energy, isn't it? I don't get these people that are like, I'm going on a no carb diet. Do you know that there's carbs in like vegetables? Like, how can you just cut out carbs? Like, I get it, like refined carbs, like white flours and white rice and stuff. Like, yeah, fair enough. But it's not going to kill you if you eat it once in a while. Like, look at the Japanese culture. Like, they live on like mainly rice, vegetables, and then like a little bit of meat. And they're like one of the healthiest races, So it's not bad for you if you do it properly. You just don't cut out carbs completely. It really annoys me when people do that. I just hate it.
There's a big movement of that at the moment, like the whole, like the keto thing. There's a lot of that kind of science, maybe in inverted commas, that's out there, sort of saying how those low carb diets are brilliant for you. And like again, I'm interested. It feels like your position, being affiliated with, like I say, a professional sports club, it is almost more valid than some of the pseudoscience you see out and about in in the media and so on. So it's kind of fascinating. It's almost like first-hand experience that actually professional athletes, they have carbs.
Of course, yeah. Like, if you got one thing you've got to remember is carbs burn into energy. So if you're not eating carbs, you're not going to have energy. Like, you don't get, that's your main source of energy is carbohydrate. The only way you're going to get fat on carbs is if you sit around and don't do anything. If you eat loads of carbs and go to the gym, of course. Like, I can't really exactly remember everything on Game Changers, but I'm pretty sure they ate a lot of carbs.
Yeah.
Didn't the guy at the end, like the strongest man in the world, eat like 10 meals for dinner or something?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Like the carbs thing. Every vegan athlete you hear talks a great deal about how much. In fact, I was watching one of Hench Herbivore's kind of videos. I don't know if you've seen him around. He's like a personal trainer from Norwich.
Oh yeah.
And is a big guy and vegan.
Nice.
And talks about having an awful lot of carbs in a day, and what was interesting, he talks about doing that on a cut. It wasn't just when he's on a bulk. He's doing it on a cut as well, because that's that, like you say, that's energy, is fuel. Yeah. As long as those aren't poor quality carbs that are refined and stuff.
Whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. Eating a load of carbs, and funny enough, you get fat.
Yeah. But it's mainly like the potato's fine. It's because it's deep fried.
It's deep fried in a load of oil.
Exactly. That's the problem. So if you want to eat potatoes, like, it's a vegetable, of course. Potatoes even have protein in. Yeah. That's a very small amount, but they still do,
Yeah, I've heard that, like, that essentially, like, if as long as you're not calorie deficient, for the average person, not talking about sports people here, but for the average person, you're not going to be protein deficient.
No.
On a vegan diet. No way. There's just protein in everything.
Exactly. It's such a common misconception. It's so silly. It's like, that is not the main problem of veganism. Not at all.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd love to go backwards a little bit into, like, so how did you get associated with Forest Greens? Because I'd imagine that being from the few chefs I've spoken to who are vegan, that the number of, there's a sort of, almost seems like there's a problem at the moment insofar as there's not many vegan chef jobs,
and not many places to learn how to be a vegan chef either.
Yeah.
So the people who have got jobs struggle to find vegan chefs because there's not many of them being trained, and sort of this negative cycle almost that we're sort of slowly breaking as more places become vegan.
Yeah.
How did you kind of find the role and get involved with the club?
It's quite a funny story actually. So I came back from Australia. And I was working, so it was like I had to kind of just get a job, anything I could. And to be honest, because I'd gone vegan, I wasn't really looking for a chef job because I knew there wouldn't be a vegan chef job out there. So I was like, kind of gave up on that and like try something different, whatever. So as like a little kind of quick thing, I started doing Amazon delivery driving. So I used to deliver in Nailsworth, and I sometimes would deliver to Forest Green. But at the time, I wasn't a huge football fan. Like Forest Green has definitely turned me into a big football fan. But at the time, didn't have a clue. So I was like, oh, this place is cool, but no idea what it is. And so a friend of mine who works at Forest Green, he came round to my mum's for a meal. Like me and my sister made this like big vegan buffet. I'm not sure what the reason was now, but we made one. And then me and him just started chatting about Nailsworth and like how much of a beautiful place it is. And then he was like, oh yeah, I work at Forest Green, the football club, like at the top of the hill. I was like, oh, that's a football club. All right, cool, yeah. And he was like, they're actually looking for a vegan chef job. No, they're looking for a vegan chef, not a job. And I was like, oh my God, imagine how cool that would be. Like that would be like the best job ever. And I almost didn't apply because I kind of thought, well, I've never been a head chef before, so maybe like, I don't know, maybe I haven't got the experience that I need. Like I know that I can cook good vegan food, but you know, whatever. So it got to like the day before the closing date for the job, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. Like, why not? You know, what have I got to lose? This isn't, obviously, Amazon isn't my career. I just kind of, this is... and then, yeah, I remember like getting an email back for them. I was just like so excited, and I met them and I got on so well with them all. I cooked them a vegan buffet, and they like that was on my second interview, and it offered me the job there and then. And yeah, it was amazing. Like kind of just, like, it was just the right place at the right time, I guess. Like my friend telling me about it, and if I hadn't have seen him then, you know, I wouldn't have known about it. You know, it's not like I stumbled across it on the internet or anything. So it's kind of like fate, really. And it's just gone on from there, and yeah, it's going really well. I really enjoy being there.
So like, I'm fascinated by this interview process where you've got to produce a vegan buffet. Like, how much pressure did you feel you were under at that point? I can't imagine cooking like as part of an interview process.
Yeah, so it was like, first of all, the first interview I met three of them. It was the CEO, the general manager, and the commercials manager. And then, we just chatting, blah, blah, obviously like normal interview style. And then I went away. They emailed me and was like, right, could you come in for a second interview? But so basically we want you to like cook a buffet for like, the chairman was there, like Dale was there, like the first team nutritionist was there. There was loads of like important people there. I was like, oh God. And they were like, what do you, if you let us know what you want to cook, we'll get the ingredients and you just come in, you've got like 2 hours, I think, to cook it, and then we'll lay it out and you can like, so yeah, obviously that was like so much pressure. But I was, well, you know, I'm just going to like go for it really. I try not to, I think with anything that I do, I try not to see it as pressure or get too worked up about it, because if you do, then it makes it worse. Like get like, try not to get nervous about anything, because if you do, then you're going to come across nervous, you know? So just try and be as zen as possible.
You must have been pretty zen. I wouldn't have been able to cope with cooking a buffet in 2 hours.
Yeah. But yeah, it went well, and they was like, yeah, like offered me the job, and I was like, yes. I couldn't believe it. It was so good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That pressure thing, like, so the ability to cope with pressure, I imagine, is fairly crucial, because I can't imagine like getting ready for a match day. It's a limited time window.
Yeah.
That people have got to eat in, and that service has got to be there. It's not kind of like they're there for they're there kind of on an unlimited kind of time.
Exactly.
Enjoying an evening out. They're there for a very limited time. So has that been quite unique as a chef in that environment versus perhaps other restaurants you've worked in?
Yeah, definitely. So restaurant style, obviously you just get people coming in or you've got bookings. So if booking wise, you know what you've got. But if you get walk-ins, it's kind of like it can be madly busy or it can be really slow paced. Whereas a match day at Forest Green, it is just mental. From 8 o'clock in the morning until 4 p.m, it is just non-stop. But we'll have like 8 until about 12 is like prepping the salads, prepping like all the main bits, whatever. And then from 12 o'clock, the food starts to go out and the food stops at 2. So we've got 2 hours to feed about 450 people. That's not including like around the ground because there's separate kitchens that cook like the homemade pies and sausage rolls. So they'll be pre-prepped and then sent down to them. They'll cook them down there because obviously the kitchens can only handle so much. So, so it goes out in 2 hours. So it's just literally, right, on Saturday it was so busy. We had 170 people in the VIP lounge. We had 50 people in like the second biggest lounge. And then all the suites had up to 15 people, which is 8 suites. And the boardroom had 30 people. So imagine feeding all those people in like 2 hours. It's pretty nuts. So yeah, that's like a completely different type of pressure. But the good thing about that is that I know what's going out. So it's not like a restaurant where people look at a menu and they choose what they want. So you've kind of you don't really know what you're going to be cooking, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like someone will come in, right, I'll have, I don't know, the Wellington or whatever. So you have to kind of cook it there and then. Whereas I know that suite's having that, they're having that. So I can kind of work to that time frame, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
So the club's kind of on the up, and like has ambitions of getting to the kind of championship in the hopefully not too distant future, and it's got this new ground planned. So as the kind of like the head chef, what could that mean for you? That potential of not only kind of the club getting bigger on that scale, but also the kind of new premises and so on. Is there kind of any implication for you as a head chef, or is it kind of business as normal?
To be honest, I'm not sure. We haven't really discussed it that much because obviously it's been so like it's only the other day that it got accepted.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because it's not just about the football. Like it's such an amazing community thing. The things Dale has planned are just really amazing. For me, I mean, obviously it's going to be probably a lot more work, so I'll probably have more of a team. So at the moment, it's mainly me in the week. So I'll like do all the prepping, I'll write all the menus, pretty much everything there is to do, I'll do. But then I will get help as well if needed to make like the sausage rolls and pies and stuff that is like done the same every week. So I'll get maybe a team. But it's really cool. So at the moment we do we call them fit to last sessions. And we teach local schools how to cook match day food. So the schools will come in, we'll probably do it once a month, and we'll teach them about the sustainability, we'll teach them about the sports side of things, and we'll teach them about vegan food. And then they'll then cook with me some vegan food. So in the new ground, we're hoping that we're going to have an actual just kitchen place where we can have the children.
That's amazing.
Always set up so that we can just do more of that, more community type things. I think at the ground at the moment we do struggle with space we do use one room for most things kind of thing. So it's I think it will just make life a lot easier really yeah.
And also probably give you a little headache if you've got to build a bigger team. So that was going to be something I wanted to explore with you. It's as we talked about, the training for vegan chefs not necessarily being there.
Yeah.
A lot of them that I've encountered have ended up either kind of learning in kind of omnivorous kind of kitchens and then having to kind of relearn almost.
Yeah.
Or self-teach with some of the skills they've got.
Yeah.
Or they've kind of come to it purely as a vegan chef and then they've been completely self-taught, but there isn't kind of a formal process for learning.
Yeah.
Have you kind of thought about, or have you had, I guess have had experience in building the team you've currently got in terms of where do you find those people who've got those skills and perhaps a passion for vegan food?
So it's quite a funny story, actually. Like, one of the things I love the most about Forest Green is that it's a very family-driven place. So obviously you've got Dale as a chairman, and then his son is the the general manager, and then one of his other sons works there as well, mainly in like media and everything like that. And then so a lot of people basically just like bring their families in, and what I've done is I've pretty much got like my friends and family working in the kitchen with me at the moment, and it's really cool because a lot of them are vegan as well. So I've got my sister who's vegan, and she's been working with me for over a year now, and just mainly on match days, and then sometimes to help out if it's really busy. My other friend Georgie, who's also vegan, she works with me a lot. And I've just taken on a new friend, Louise, and she's also vegan. So I kind of hire my own team, which is handy because the problem is the hours aren't there for a full-time job for anyone else. So it's kind of like a casual contract. So it works well for them. Obviously, with my sister having kids, my other friend being at uni, they need just like a 0-hour contract type thing. So it works well for them and it works well for me. So it's really funny. I haven't got like, and they're both like amazing. That I've taught them. And like my sister's like loves cooking anyway. She'll cook for her family and whatever. So it's not like I'm just pulling random people off the street that don't know how to cook. Like taught them things, and yeah, they're doing really well. And it's really nice to kind of work with your friends as well and your family, and just to have that is really nice. So it's good. Yeah.
Talking of families being at the club, like the few times I've visited, in fact, the first time I went, it was for like my birthday last year, and we kind of arranged like a little tour. So we did a little tour beforehand because I was just like fascinated with the whole ethos of the club. And that obviously, like many people, I suppose that attracted me to it from not being somebody who was from the area kind of thing. And the person who did the tour, she was absolutely amazing. And she talked about how like her daughter was also working there as well. Yeah, I think it was Sarah. And her daughter was also working there. And she was talking about like her kind of like history with the club dated back to her father taking her to her first game when she was like, so when she was a child, and she had all these memories kind of attached to it, and this whole family tradition. I thought is just incredible. And so I'm kind of intrigued as to like how people that you've encountered who've had that long tradition have felt about this kind of like this propulsion of the club, if you like, into the media, into like with worldwide spotlight, and with this very particular kind of like ethical, environmental, sustainable message.
Yeah.
How do those people feel about like being put under that spotlight?
So obviously everyone's like got different views on it. And so I was speaking to one of the fans, and he's been coming for 15 years. He's been the season ticket holder for about 15 years. And he was like, it used to be tradition to like meet up by the burger van, get a burger, get a beer, and then go out and watch the game. He was like, at first it really like got to him, and he nearly didn't come anymore because first of all it turned vegetarian, then it turned vegan. He was like nearly just, sacked it off completely. But he was like, to be honest, like absolutely love coming up for the food now. And it's the same, I think, like obviously you can't tell people what to do in their home lives. So the staff at Forest Green, not all of them are vegan, but they're for it, and they understand it. And I don't know, I guess if they fully understand, they would do it themselves. But that's how I see it. But yeah, I think like my manager, Paula, absolutely amazing. She's been at the club for I think maybe 15 years. And so she's seen a huge change. Like she was there before Dale. She I think so she's seen it from like when it was like Forest Green Rovers, and it was completely like, I'm pretty sure it was like going down a bit when Dale took over. So she's seen that and then seen this rise. But it's like people just seem to have adapted to it so well, and it's because of people like that have put in all that time and effort that have made it work so well, So yeah, everyone's like adapted really well to it, and I think people enjoy the fact that it's the media side of things as well, because it's amazing. Like, you work at the greenest football club in the world, like the only vegan football club in the world. Like, how amazing is that?
Yeah,
Like, that's such a cool thing. And I wonder if like other football clubs will follow suit. You know,
I feel like they will, just on the science. Like, even if they're not. And I love the fact that Forest Green's committed to not just the kind of the food element purely from a science nutrition for the players point of view. It's a full club ethos about kind of the environmental impact, sustainability, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Kind of food, energy, transport, kind of all of these things. I love that kind of particular message. But I can imagine some like clubs will probably start purely on on the science of nutrition. Like, it just makes sense.
It does, yeah.
From there, like you mentioned there about the kind of scar tissue ratio at Forest Green versus other clubs. Like,
Yeah.
if you were the manager or head coach or whatever of any other team, I'd be looking at that thinking, that's a competitive advantage that team's got over me. Like, we need to think about that. Like, that's, if that gives them a 1% over us. At that level, that's the kind of, at elite sport level, 1% to what it's about, right? So,
yeah,
it makes total sense, and I think they'll like the work that you're doing, from as a chef will be trailblazing. I really do. I think I can't imagine any club would be able to ignore it. Ignore those statistics almost.
Yeah, especially in the rise in veganism as well.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it's cool. So hopefully, I know that a lot of clubs are definitely going down the more sustainable side of things as well, because like we've had a lot of club come to visit Forest Green to try and get tips on the sustainability side of things. And I've also made them lunch, so that and we've spoken about like what we feed the players and everything like that. So definitely people interested, but obviously it definitely takes some balls to do it. And like that's one thing that Dale has. Like he's a very intelligent man, and he's I don't know if it's like seeing a gap in the market. He's literally done this just purely because that's what he believes in, which is an amazing thing, because like that could have completely gone the other way, couldn't it?
Yeah.
But it's just blown up, and it's an amazing thing. So
yeah, and it's like I say, it's trailblazing. I don't think there's many others in that kind of space, In fact, I've been in touch recently with a rugby club called Green Gazelles Rugby, and they're a newly formed sevens team.
Oh yeah,
but with an international base, and they're very much looking at the Forest Green model because they want to be the world's first vegan rugby club.
That's cool.
So they're very much looking at Forest Green as a kind of that's the blueprint almost for what it should be like and could be like from everything from the, like I say, the food, the energy, the transport kind
that's
of
brilliant
perspective. So that's just, I suppose, one example that I've seen of a club that really didn't exist, and now does. So definitely like some definitely trailblazing in that work.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'd love to I've got a couple more questions I'd love to kind of pose to you. One's around like veganuary. We talked a little bit about that, but like this is obviously we're pre-Christmas now chatting, but by the time this episode comes out, we'll be like deep into veganuary. Hopefully everybody is kind of like contemplating, whether they take that on. What would your kind of like advice from a kind of like might be a nutritional point of view, but just even from a like, where to get started from a cooking perspective?
So I think we're so lucky these days in the fact that the amount of recipes online, the amount of vegan cookbooks out there, like just Google, I don't know, what's your favourite meal, for example?
Mine? Oh, God, that's put me on the spot. It feels like I should say like a Q pie. It's definitely up, it's definitely up there.
Yeah.
I would say like stuff like you talked about the hearty stuff. Like I definitely think like a shepherdless pie kind of that's kind of where I tend to start. And anything that involves sweet potatoes.
Oh my God, love it.
Yeah, those are probably where I'd start.
Yeah, exactly. So so if you say for a shepherd's pie, so okay, you love shepherd's pie. So all you need to do, you can literally make that exact meal, but but all you need to do is swap the mince for sunflower mince or quail mince or, soya mince, there's like so many different options out there. And like we spoke about earlier with if you're a big meat eater, then use meat substitutes to start with. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Start with that and cut them out. Or I think the main thing is just making sure you enjoy what you eat, and you can really you'll realize when you're eating and it'll probably get you into cooking as well, like a lot. That's when I got into cooking way more from cooking vegan food, because it's so interesting to think how is that vegan? Like, it's so cool. And a lot of people say that to me as well from the food. They're like, you would literally never think it was vegan. So just cook what you like cooking. Like, you don't have to miss out. Like, you literally don't have to miss out on anything, and meal prep is always a big one as well, because say you're going on a long journey and you want to I'm hungry. You stop at the services, there's not much choice still. Like, we're lucky in the fact that there is a lot of choice in the supermarkets these days. Imagine being vegan 50 years ago. You'd literally have vegetables. And it would be a whole food diet, which is nothing wrong with that. It's amazing. But we are lucky that we've got, if you have a craving for cheese, you can go and buy some cheese, fake cheese, or same with meat, So, I think meal prepping is definitely the one, and just make sure that you've got food on you at all times. So like if you get a bit hungry and you're like, oh no, there's nothing to eat, and then you like cave, especially because if you're a new vegan, it's very easy to, be like, oh, just have this cheese toasty this once,
Yeah.
So meal prepping is definitely a big one, I think, as well.
And another thing that I definitely would kind of ask for on behalf, I suppose, of potential kind of like the people going into kind of veganuary, looking to try the kind of the lifestyle, if you like, would be the kind of budget. There's definitely a sense, I've had this from so many people who are kind of like, omnivorous folk I know, who've said, I would go vegan, but it's really expensive, right? Mm-hmm. I'd love to get your view on that, given the fact that, like when you cater for 450 people, you haven't got an unlimited checkbook, I would imagine. Yeah. You have to think about, like, anyone in kind of any catering world has to think about the cost of what they're kind of pulling together. So what would your view be on the kind of like veganism being expensive as it's kind of portrayed?
I think if you're eating properly, of course you can buy tin food that's cheap, but you can buy tin beans like chickpeas or lentils for like 50p. That's your protein. And you've got potatoes. Like this is like just, you don't have to have this every day, but this is an example. Like, you've got potatoes, what you can buy a pack for £1. And then you can have like chopped tomatoes as a sauce for like loads of herbs and stuff. You're looking at like £2 maximum for a meal. But if you're buying like a steak, what is that, £4 for a steak? I don't know the price anymore. I haven't bought it for so long. But like, I wouldn't say that being vegan's more expensive. Like, fair enough, if you're buying like the substitutes, like if you want your cheese, meat substitutes, of course it's going to be expensive because it's new, and apparently it's what everyone wants. So of course it's going to be more expensive if you're doing it. But if you are like doing like the vegan diet, like Whole Foods way, it's not like, you can get vegetables really cheap, and like, bread, rice, like all that stuff's so cheap. So,
yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's when people look at the vegan substitute stuff, like, and they even things like that I think are kind of like slip into the subconscious, like, when you go into a coffee shop, it always frustrates me this. You go into a coffee shop and there's like a tax almost on drinking oat milk.
I know, I don't get that.
It's like an extra 40p. And I
don't understand that at all.
Why is it an extra 40p?
I know, like, I get that it is more expensive than a carton of milk. Yeah. But milk shouldn't be that cheap. Like, look at what the cows go through. Like, they are literally tortured. And you're buying a carton of milk for 30p or whatever it is. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever. And that's why people, I guess, when you look at it like, say, oat milk versus normal milk, yeah, of course it's more expensive. But look what you're getting. You're not drinking, like, milk is full of, like, mucus, hormones, like, literally that is baby cow growth fluid that you're drinking. Like, if you're feeding your child, like, milk, like cow's milk, it's probably like that would have like detrimental effects on it, I think. Like, I know that people say, oh, you get calcium from milk. You get calcium from a lot of things. You get calcium from nuts. You get calcium from, there's calcium in oat milk. There's calcium in almond milk, you know, like there's not more in oat milk. And I read this study, sorry, there's not more in cow's milk. I read this study that was, it said that because cow's milk actually gives you bone deficiency. Can't really quote anything on that because it was a long time that I read it. But yeah, it's not, going back to the cheap thing, it's definitely not cheap. It's definitely not more expensive for a vegan diet, but you just need to make sure you're doing it like, yeah, properly, I guess, and not living on the substitutes. So
yeah, totally agree. I think I think any diet that's not planned, there's the potential to make you unhealthy.
Yeah, for sure, exactly.
And when I look at like at sort of almost on a national level, like the nation is being supplemented. You know, if I think back to like you look at like lots of breads at the moment and things like this have vitamin D in them, and that they've been supplemented with vitamin D because we work indoors all day and we never used to work indoors, so we've got vitamin D deficiency. You've got kind of like rickets on the rise and things like this, and this is not because necessarily like the omnivorous diet that kind of everyone thinks is going to give them everything that that they kind of want, kind of at almost like a governmental level, like mandates to supplement with vitamin D, kind of says we know where there's deficiencies in that diet. You know, B12 is injected into animals, you know, because it's not in the earth anymore because we've depleted the earth. So it's like, you know, I think people are told this story that they've got this like amazing nutrient dense diet just because they eat meat.
Yeah, literally.
And they're eating Burger King all day.
Yeah. But then if you look back at the timeline, so back in like the was it like the 20s or something, where so basically back in the day that you would just buy local things from your local, obviously there's no transport or anything, barely, so you buy like carrots from Mr. Smith and you buy your steaks from like that farm and blah blah. So yeah, that's fair enough because it's all like organic and blah blah. And then you've got then junk food started coming in and you can see like old ads. So I saw a meme the other day on Instagram and it was a picture of a pregnant woman on like I don't know, on the cover of something, and she had a cigarette. And have you seen that one? And it's like, if they can convince you that smoking's good for you, then they can certainly convince you that animal products are good for you too. Like, it just goes back, like, it's a complete, like, we as humans have been brainwashed. And it goes back to years and years and years and years and years. And it goes back to, like, even our grandparents, where they're like, oh, this is really cheap and convenient for, like, the modern, like, for a housewife to, like, stick in a microwave meal for my family, because, like, they go from having their steaks and their vegetables from like down the road, and then like, oh, the supermarkets have brought out these microwave meals, amazing. They don't know what it does to them because they're not trained in nutrition. They're like, oh, this is really easy to feed me and my family. Literally goes back to those days, and it's just got worse and worse and worse. And now we still believe that. It's like, hang on, like, open your eyes and realize that there is amazing food that you can be eating. You don't need, people are educated these days. That is everywhere. Like, educate yourself and then make the choice. And people that like were like, oh, bloody vegans, blah blah. Good one for the podcast. Yeah, like, it's because they're not educated in it at the end of the day, and it's like, we're not doing anything wrong, are we? We're not like forcing it upon you at all. And
Absolutely
that's
not.
Why do people get so like irate about the fact that we don't eat animal products? We're not hurting animals. That's what
it is an odd mindset, isn't it? I almost think they're not. I almost think people aren't necessarily angry with you per se. They're angry that your very sort of presence or existence in the world, being vegan, is challenging their reality. Like, by you saying you're vegan, that must mean that what you're saying, that what I do, is ethically incorrect, that my family brought me up wrong, that my understanding of my own health is incorrect, and that I don't care about animals.
Yeah.
And like, I suppose I think that's why it feels so loaded for people, because it's like, by you saying you do something, but then I'd equate it to like, you know, like, not that I would necessarily say being vegan is a religion, but if I think about like people who hold religious beliefs, if those religious beliefs are different to mine, I don't assume that that person is saying that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Just because they're different, I just assume that's what they believe, and this is what I believe. And if I want to open up to the conversation with them and listen to what they've got to say, and I think actually I agree with you, I'd like to be involved in that religion, then I'd go and do that. But I don't see it as a threat. But it's interesting. It's very loaded, isn't it?
It is, yeah. People do get very like irate about it, especially if like Forest Green as well. We had a tweet the other day, and it was like someone just took a picture of like a chicken in a packet and a steak in a packet. It was like FGRV Swindon today. It was like, and just tweeted that picture. It's like, what, are you going to bring it? Like, I don't get it. Like, what?
Do you get that a lot from away, particularly away supporters? Because away supporters in football generally, like, they look for
anything
something
they can. Yeah.
to have a go at the other team about. Do you find that a lot?
Yeah, like one time we had someone come dressed as a butcher. The chant, "Where's your sausage rolls?" happens quite a lot. Yeah, and of course, like you say, they'll use anything, and like that's obviously the main thing that they can use for us.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, we're not going to get like not bothered by it. At the end of the day, we're doing like an amazing thing. Like our environmental impact is like compared to their football club. So
yeah,
you just got to take it with a pinch of salt, I guess. Like I do with anyone that questions my own diet. It's like, sorry, why does it bother you what I eat? It doesn't make any sense.
It's interesting, isn't it? The debate is started just from you. You might even be like in I don't know, like with colleagues, not so much where you work, but where other people work. Maybe you're kind of with colleagues maybe, and you ask for a vegan menu, and suddenly that's like an invitation for everybody to sort of gather round and ask you questions about your diet, which is really odd. I can't imagine anybody saying, you know, like, I don't know. I guess it's because they see, like, if I ask for a gluten-free menu, then they think that's kind of, well, that's a medical reason.
Yeah.
It's not a choice thing. But even with vegetarianism, I think that's disappeared almost, that people don't necessarily, if you say, can I, you know, what are the vegetarian options do you have? I think people are generally quite cool with that now.
Yeah.
So my hope is that in the very near future that people kind of feel the same about veganism, that they kind of like, oh, okay, cool.
They get used to it now. Yeah, exactly. Definitely.
I hope anyway. But it definitely, the amount of, I don't know about you, you're probably you are far more equipped to have this conversation than me, but I definitely find myself having to almost research elements of nutrition and kind of dietary advice in some social situations, because I think this is going to end up, somebody's going to end up challenging me on like the nutritional value of that. I've heard that, you know, like with you putting soy in that latte, that means that you're going to have like an excess of estrogen.
Yeah.
And me having to, I couldn't, before becoming vegan, I'd never thought to research phytoestrogens in my life.
Yeah, exactly.
but now I feel like I need to be an expert on it.
But that's the amazing thing about veganism, is that you learn what you're putting in your body. You have to read every food label in case it's got milk or eggs in it, because apparently everything has powdered milk in it these days for some reason.
It does.
It's like a cheap bulker.
Yeah.
Imagine what that's doing for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's another amazing thing. If you go vegan, you learn what you're eating. You know what you're putting in your body. You know, and then from there, the more I don't know about you, but the more I learn, the more I'm interested, the more I want to learn, especially about like nutrition and veganism. Like, I find it so interesting about the human body and what makes what our bodies thrive on and what they don't thrive on.
Yeah.
Like, people think that if you eat meat, you're going to be full. Like, you're going to be way more full than if you eat a plate of vegetables. But that's a misconception, because if you eat meat, you feel full straight away, but it digests. It takes like 8 hours to digest. So you've still got that meat in. Say you have like chicken for dinner, you're going to have that digestion in your stomach overnight, and your digestive tract slows down while you're sleeping. So whereas vegetables, especially if they're cooked, they'll be gone within 2 hours, but you'll still feel full. So you have your chicken, which will it will make you feel full, as your stomach will, like, say your stomach's like that big, and it will fill you up to there, but you'll feel full. Whereas the vegetables will completely fill your stomach up, and you'll feel full for so much longer. You know, so that's why with the players, like, it's good that they don't eat like chicken stuff before a match, because if they do, it's going to still be digesting when they're playing. Like, it's not good for an athlete to still be digesting food while they're running around for 90 minutes, you know?
It's amazing, isn't it? There's so many clubs, football clubs, rugby clubs, so many sporting teams would use that kind of old science, if you like, the kind of like, eat plenty of, like, white meat, you need to eat loads of chicken, etc. When you think about, like, as you've just said there, sounds perfectly logical, and no doubt scientifically proven, and it seems that old science prevails in sport, as it's mad to think, isn't it?
But then they're probably still going by the fact that, like, if they're buying it from a farm, and it probably has like a lot of nutritional value, but look at like the factory farming these days. Like you've probably seen, like, you would have seen documentaries, even on the news, like a few months ago, it was showing that chickens, it's like ones that you buy in a supermarket, which the majority of people do. They're 18 days old when they're killed. They don't even grow fur. They'd never see the light of day. Tell me what nutrients those chickens are going to have, because they're not even old enough to develop like enough protein in one breast to feed you for the day, like, it's miserable. So you're literally eating misery. So imagine what, like, I know that people might not connect that, but we as human beings, what am I trying to say? We're very, like, we take on feelings, don't we? We're very, like, empathetic beings, I guess. So if you're eating a chicken that is like a chicken's flesh that died scared, miserable, and like, it's a baby, isn't it? Like, imagine how scared it is. Like, you're then, like, our blood, like, when we feel like the fight or flight kind of thing, if you're scared, your body, certain organs shut down to, like, really hard to get my words out right now. Your body will like kind of shut down certain organs so that you can then go for that certain thing, if that makes, you know what I mean?
Like, it prioritizes almost what you need to function in the moment of fight or flight.
Yeah. So if, like, you were being chased by a cheetah, you wouldn't need your digestive tract. So it would be more like focusing on your legs and your, like, ability to, like, run kind of thing. So as humans, we will eat that meat, and I think you're going to take on that stress of that animal, and like you're literally eating, like, death.
Yeah.
So
well, that's definitely, I think, even if I find that difficult to sort of comprehend, even if you contradict the climate change science, which would be a challenge to do, but even if you don't believe that, you don't believe the science around health, just on a purely, like, you can see suffering and you can see pain, and you can understand that if an animal's supposed to live, 12 years, that if it lives 18 months, that's not a good thing. And you can understand the conditions that something's living in. Like, that alone would be a reason enough, I would have thought. But I think that goes back to that dissonance thing. We're separate. We're purposefully separated so much from that. It's like dairy,
Exactly. Exactly.
Most people are vegetarians. Like, they would, cite they're vegetarian for the animals, and, like, that's, in fact, if I go back a few years, like, I was in that at camp, I was vegetarian for about 4 or 5 years, because I'd never associated, milk and eggs as problematic.
Yeah.
It was only when, the sort of started with Cowspiracy and then went into kind of Earthlings and Dominion and so on, and then you sort of start to uncover. And even the documentary we were talking about before we started recording, actually, we were talking about a documentary called 73 Cows with a guy called Alex Lockwood, and who's the director, and the farmer in it, a guy called Jay Wild, and his wife Katja, they inherited actually, it was a dairy farm to start with. And I thought this was fascinating because it was firsthand that Jay and Katja decided to make it a beef farm because they thought that was less suffering than dairy, which is incredible because that's not in the mainstream.
People don't think that.
No. They think dairy is almost like willfully given, and that we're almost like, we're helping this cow be unburdened of this milk.
Yeah.
And like, where's the milk come from?
But in reality, that poor cow is probably on its 5th baby. It's never seen the light of day. It can't even walk. It's got udders the size of its stomach. And its baby is ripped away from it as soon as it's born. Probably if it's a boy, it'll be veal. And if it's a girl, it has the same fate as its mum, unfortunately. And this is just science. This is like, says it all really. Like, as a mum, as a new mum, and you're breastfeeding your child knows if you're stressed, doesn't it? Even it will be in your milk. It's in your body, Stress isn't just in your mind. Your whole body suffers with stress. So your milk will suffer with stress. If that cow is stressed, you're drinking that cow's stress. That's, that
can't be good for you.
No, it can't be, exactly. Let alone the hormones and the mucus and everything else that comes with it. Then you've got the cow's stress because the cow is being tortured day and night.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
It is.
Yeah.
It is very sad.
I know.
I've got one kind of final question for you. It's quite, I suppose, a big one from a global perspective, but is how confident do you feel that we'll kind of reach the kind of our kind of ambition, if you like, to have a kind of completely vegan world?
It's so tricky, isn't it? Because obviously it would be amazing, like Carnage. Imagine a world like that would be brilliant.
Yeah.
Makes me laugh, the AA meetings, they used to eat cheese.
I love that bit.
But I really think that a lot of people are stuck in their ways. I think maybe the older generation, I don't know. Like, I think maybe in a few generations' time, once people from a young age, like your son, my nieces, they're brought up like that. Like my niece, my oldest niece, she goes to a vegetarian school. That's really cool? Yeah. So I think maybe in the younger generations, there's a bit of a chance. I think a lot of people are stuck in their ways in the older generations, mainly because they don't really understand it. I think also looking at the other side of things, like, if it wasn't so mass farmed, it wouldn't be so much of an issue. Like, of course, looking at the cows, like if they had a happy life for 10 years and, and then I still don't personally agree with it. And even saying it, I'm like, oh, it's really sad. But it's the factory farming of it that is awful. That's the environmental impact. That's like where the suffering comes from, because they don't care. They don't care about the animals there. And also the health side of things. Like everything is wrong with factory farming animals, but in like farming lands, like the animal manure will then be fertilizers for the crops. So it does work in like a eco cycle in a way. I just think the way we go about it, people are greedy and there's no need for it. If everyone went to just eating meat once a week, it wouldn't be as bad as it is now. Like some abattoirs like slaughter like 8,000 cows a day. That's just one, There's just no need for the mass production of it at all. So, I think for me, if nutrition, like my lifelong goal is very ambitious, but is to get nutrition taught in schools as a curricular like lesson. So why is that not taught? Do you know what I mean? Like, why it's so important? Like, a human being is our fuel for, our vehicle for the universe, our bodies, to fuel that properly. That's the most important thing for a human, right? But yet we're taught, things that aren't really as important. We should be taught from a really young age nutrition, not so much, you don't, if it was done properly. So like, obviously we're taught nutrition on a level of, the pyramid where you like meat and eggs are at the top or whatever. When it's taught properly, you know. And if it was taught vegan nutrition, like that'd be even more amazing, because it like gets. But I just think that children need to know what they're eating, and a lot of parents aren't educated in that, so they'll just feed their kids anything, and their kids will be fat. Like the amount of times you go into a supermarket and like you see the parents like pushing the trolley and they've got all their fizzy pop and all the crap that you can buy in the supermarkets, and you just look at that kid and you think they literally don't stand a chance, because the only people that teach you nutrition is your parents mainly, unless you like broaden your horizons and like learn yourselves. So I think a lot of problems be solved if you're educated at a young age what, you know, nutritional values of foods.
And you're definitely playing your part in your current role as well, which is awesome. So
yeah, trying.
So thanks so much for your time, Jade. You're like super busy, so I'm really lucky to have got to chat to you. So
thanks so much. My pleasure. I loved it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.